Good Sunday evening, December 21st, little 7:30 Eastern Time video update here, little special video update for you all on the evolution of the pattern. Obviously, it's a hot topic right now. My X feed has been blown up with, just interesting comments and posts and interactions now since the 16th, since I posted the infamous map that no one could ever understand how in the hell I'd post it, and they couldn't believe it that I did, and all of these other things. Fine. Listen, this is the controversy. Let me just say, we're not in any type of slam dunk situation here. Okay, we've seen some short-term, colder trends in the modeling, and it makes sense to me. I'll explain why I believe that it makes sense. To the next guy, to the other meteorologist, the other account, it may not make sense to them. They may not agree. I don't know. And to be quite honest with you, I really don't care. So we'll go over with, what I see, what I think, my forecast, my call. And like I always tell everybody, if you think you can do it better or you have a different one, put your forecast out. Put your maps out. Actual takeaway maps. Stop being so secretive about what it is you're trying to say and just freaking say it. All right. So subscribe to the channel, continue to get the updates, share it with a friend. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about the forecast in general. Why would I say that it could look like this? Well, I don't know, because of what I'm looking at says that it could. This is radar here this evening, Sunday evening. Not a whole heck of a lot going on. In fact, it's pretty nice for the most part for this week. When you look at the snowfall forecast the next 3 days out, there's really nothing going on. The rainfall forecast the next 3 days, there's some light rain here tomorrow evening into Tuesday across the Ohio Valley in the Northeast. Not much there going on at all. And as that system passes, maybe some isolated light icing concerns across to Minneapolis, Wisconsin, Michigan, up into Pennsylvania and New York there, right? But let's take a look at things. This is the trend, European ensemble, the old day 9 and 10 into the new day 8 and 9. Okay, so we took a 3-run trend. Pretty significant changes inside of 3 runs. Would you agree? I mean, I would agree. Yeah, I don't know how you couldn't agree. Ask Indiana and Illinois. It's how far west it backs. Okay, now look at. Okay, I'm gonna beat this into the ground. You're gonna hate me by the end of the video if you don't already. There's the European ensemble trend, right? Here is the AIFS, the run-to-run AI version. It's picking up on it a little quicker. Nonetheless, weird, huh? That's weird. I know it's weird. I know it doesn't make sense, but there's a GFS ensemble. It's been a little slower. Now, I haven't looked at 18Z, I don't think, unless this is 18Z. Maybe I do have 18Zs running here. I don't know. Anyways, this is the latest trend there. But again, the trend is there. It's weird how much it looks like that. I know. And this is the GEFS AI, which is it's a little bit more aggressive on the trend itself. So this tells me right now that we're probably not done trending with the colder trend in the 5 to 10 day forecast right now. That the 5 to 10 day period, in my opinion, it gets colder, and there's probably a decent storm to track in that period, right? So let's look at our models, and you can go to synopticwx.com. These are actually our models. They're in beta version testing right now. Lots coming to those. These are going to be fun. This page is going to be a lot of fun here once we get done with everything that we're doing in terms of adding stuff to the page. But let's just kind of talk about the forecast in general going forward. Look at that big storm that bombs out there in the Atlantic. That's going to go to work on the NAO up there in Greenland, by the way. We're going to continue to go out through the weekend here. There's going to be another system that'll slide through, and because we have some cold air damming in place and some cold air up into the north and east, Friday night into Saturday, there's probably going to be some accumulating snow up there across New England with that low that slides through the area. It's really not that surprising. Another one comes through, right? You can see the transfer of energy. The big low up there in southern Canada transfers energy off to the coast. and probably bombs out to a pretty big, nasty New England storm up there in Maine early next week. Again, the blocking supports that, a big, nasty low pressure center. The Northeast is wintry. It is just wintry. I mean, it's just, and there's not much in the way of warmth for the Northeast, if you ask me, at this particular point in time. Getting out into the extended forecast, all right, all the way out here. This is the 18Z AIFS, all right. You don't see any big storms outside of the ones I just covered on that particular run, right? Let's go over here and take a look at the GFS 18Z, okay? Yeah, we're just looking here. We're just looking for storms. We're just looking at the pattern in general, right? Here comes that one this weekend. That's a nice storm this weekend, Friday night into Saturday. Probably going to be some ice laid down with this, some heavy snow on the north end of it, right? And Synoptic's so cool because it's so interactive and so quick, and it loads on any platform, really. It moves out. Let's zoom it back out here. See what else we have coming. That was Saturday. Again, I don't have any reason to disclaim that or not believe that's not possible Friday night into Saturday. There's that's the bigger storm up there. A little bit different than the Euro AI early next week, but there is that's a 979 low pressure center up there north of Maine. Okay. Continuing to go forward, there's going to be at some point in early January, and there it is. This is Fantasyland run on the GFS. Fantasyland. Total fantasy. At some point in early January, there's going to be a big northeast storm. I'm just telling you. I'm going to put it out on the record. I'm saying it. First week of January, somewhere in the northeast, Great Lakes into the northeast, there's going to be a monster. It's not going to be a 956 low, but listen, when you have analogs like 96 and 2000, which I have those analogs, I think there's a big storm sometime in the first week of January up there. And I think it can pull down cold. I'm just going to say it. A series of Arctic highs come in. There's a reason for that. We'll get into that in just a second. I think that in terms of just generally snowfall, I think we're lacking snow for the most part here across most of the United States until we're getting it out of that first week of January. I think we are on a break, but not for the Northeast. New England, look at that. It's nothing to dismiss there. Just saying, Northeast there. Listen, here's why I think the short term's doing this. If you went back and watched my video last week, which a lot of people did, and make sure you subscribe to the channel here. I have just always said, regardless of whatever the hell is going on, I have always said that if the vortex is on this side of the hemisphere, close into tap, and a storm system can come through like the one coming through this weekend and Monday, it can pull down Arctic air behind it. I've always said it. There's the core right here of the stratospheric polar vortex, which, by the way, technically is split, okay, at the highest level. It's the vortex itself is split here. You can see it. It's plain as day, and there's probably some seepage. You like that word, seepage, or leakage? It's leaking. Polar air is leaking from the stratosphere down into the troposphere and down to the surface. That's why this is like this for a while. This is I'm going through, and out early next week, when we get out to this weekend storm comes through, the vortex is elongated, it's stretched out, it's there, it's got the tap. All right, by the way, let's go over here. From that storm, right here, that pulls down air behind it. There it is. Right there. Look at the Euro just goes, and the Euro, again, we should have looked at that on Synoptic. The Euro's a little more aggressive with that storm early next week, right? It's a big storm there. Okay, it pulls down Arctic air with it. How? Well, because Arctic air's there. Listen, when your vortex is there and a storm comes through and it links with the polar jet, and you have the supply of Arctic air from the stratospheric polar vortex within reach, it's easy to get cold. It doesn't. People make this very confusing, I think. I think people overcomplicate this. And a lot of times what folks will do, if there's blocking but the polar vortex is over in Asia or Russia or whatever, they'll try to say it can get cold because there's blocking. Well, listen, there's no source. There's not a source region for cold. I believe you track the source region. If it's close by, you can get cold despite whatever setup you have. That's just what I believe. And it's proven to do, it does well. I mean, look at the trends right now. Look at what's happening here. All right. So, anyways, I got to calm down. I get a little worked up here. Euro does it right here. This big storm. Look at this. Look what it does to the temperature departures. Watch how it does it. Watch the storm. Storm-induced warmth out ahead. You're in the 60s in the Ohio Valley this weekend. Watch behind it. Boom. Floods the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, the Northeast with Arctic air. Just floods it. Watch what it does again. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's another storm. It's reloading. And what comes in behind it? Another shot of cold. How? Well, how can it get cold if we don't have the P&A? Well, screw the P&A. So much focus on the P&A. How does it get cold? Well, I don't know. Let's take a look. Where's the vortex? Oh, it's right there. I mean, storm comes through, grabs it. It's going to bring down Arctic air with it. There it is. So that's the reason for the short term cold. I think week 2, period. Let's just look at the GFS ensemble real quick, just because I haven't seen the 18Z. I want to see what the trends are. But I think week 2 just gets colder. Okay, here it is right there. GFS ensemble still not as cold as the EPS is. Right? But I just think that there's a colder risk here in general. And we look at this. Let's look at and we're looking at this together, by the way. This is the AI GEFS. See how it's colder for a time. It's got that cold blast in there. Brings the warmth back. Okay, then I see the cold over the top. Now, I'll tell you, I think this week 2 colder threat or risk here in that 7 to 14 day time frame right here that the AI Euro has is legit for a short time. Now, I do think, again, because what I'm about to talk about now is a little bit more technical, but I do believe that what can happen is we can warm up if the MJO moves, and all indications are telling me the MJO is going to move. In my opinion, I'm going to show you why. Okay. There's the short-term reasoning too for the cold, by the way. That's the negative Arctic oscillation from the leak in the stratospheric polar vortex for a short period of time. That's this weekend. That's this weekend into early next week because of that big storm right there. It goes up the northeast. That's it. Okay, so there's your short-term negative Arctic oscillation, flooding of Arctic air coming in. That's the reason. Okay, and it's also probably MJO phase 1 driven, which I'm going to get into. It's actually probably because of the MJOs getting ready to start to move a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to talk about that. But here's where a little bit more technical. Okay, because I want to talk about how the pattern mid-January to late January, I believe, potentially can flip to another prolonged period of winter, maybe a 2 to 4 week stint or a 2 to 3 week stint. Maybe it's a 14 to 20 day stint of winter that can flip to this. Here's how this can happen. This is where we get technical, all right? But we're going to see convection fire up again in the Eastern Indian Ocean, the Maritime Continent. What's going to start to happen is this piece here, positive frictional torque, which we're seeing. We saw a little bit of indication of that last week, which hints at brief negative EPO. I don't want to get too into the weeds here. As we bring convection back here, what I'm really looking for is this is the GWO phase, is the global wind oscillation. As the convection moves across the Eastern Indian Ocean, the maritime, eventually getting into the dateline. Okay, so this is the MJO moving. Picture this moving west to east. What I want you to keep your eye on here, what I'm looking for is this right here. I'm looking for positive mountain torque, specifically more in Eastern Asia. I'm looking for East Asia positive mountain torque. Okay? Now, why I believe this can start to move. Well, if you look here in the Indian Ocean, this is the European ensemble, AI. This is a westerly wind burst. This is a westerly wind burst. Winds are going to burst westerly across the tropical convection regions across 15 south to 15 north, it's going to cause the MJO to move. It's also going to start to put a little bit of a nail in La Nina. Okay, it's going to cause a shakeup here. All right. Then what I'm seeing is the movement of the convection in the EPS weekly and in the GEFS weekly. The European, okay, we start here. We fire up East Indian Ocean Maritime Continent Convection. Indications of movement. The EPS not as excited. Look at the GEFS. Look at the indication of movement of the upward motion. We have the phases listed here for you. This is upward motion in the Eastern Indian Ocean, the Maritime Continent. Dateline convection comes through here. You may fire off an episode of positive mountain torque. Well, the MJO is moving here. The MJO is moving. The Australian Bureau of Meteorology model is seeing this. It's moving the MJO rather quickly, and it gets it back into the colder phases by mid-January. Full circle almost. Weak potential indications are there. The reason I'm looking for the positive East Asia mountain torque, which is being shown here right now, showing up in the modeling right here. You see all the negative, all the blues? That's negative mountain torque there over East Asia. It's low pressure over the mountains. The higher pressure, the Arctic high working in towards the end of the forecast, is an indication of, in my opinion, of convection moving. This is the shakeup that possibly brings the EPO back, the East Pacific Oscillation, the block into Alaska. With the vortex in the ideal spot that it has been for a month and a half, I believe it stays there. Nudge that EPO into Alaska, you're going to turn it on. You're going to turn winter on. Instead of having bouts like we're going to deal with the next, in day 5 to 10, followed by a moderation, followed by winter returning again, I believe this is what you're looking for to see that Eastern Pacific oscillation go negative. You've got to see the convection skirt across the maritime and the dateline in order to fire up the torque changes that causes the Pacific jet to pull back. The ridge can turn a little bit. I don't know that it's going to impact the P&A region. I don't think the P&A goes positive. I think the EPO can go negative. Let me look at this more of this positive T&H pattern. This is a technical discussion. Long story made short, that probably occurs sometime around January 15th. Okay? And the weeklies, the European and the GEFS indicate, this is the negative EPO indication on the European weekly and the negative EPO indication on the GEFS weekly. The control run of the EPS weekly is actually rather aggressive. I think it sees the cold better. The controls of both European and GFS temperature departure suggestions really match. Here's the suggestion here again. And some people are going to say, well, you can't use the controls are never right. Listen, go make your own video. I don't care. This is my call. I'm giving you a call. All right. So here's the deal. Watch this. Mid-January. Right, there it is. There's a ridge bridge going on. Your trough's still up in here. Your P&A is still neutral. It's not really positive. The Arctic air is spilling in the east. This is a pattern that I can see happening. This is a pattern that matches this, and that's the analog supports that. That's why I used it, because to me it made sense. It seemed possible to me. Okay, and so that's why I think post January, this is probably dramatic in terms of anomalies. Hear me here. I'm not saying it's this outcome. But mid-January beyond, I think for a period, winter is here to stay for a little bit, potentially. The ensemble mean sees this too. It's not like I'm just cherry picking here. It sees it. The ensemble mean has. It's just not as cold. And that's fine. I'm not saying it has to be that cold of the control, but the shorter term, the models are missing the cold. If you haven't learned that by now, you need to go back and watch how this has panned out since early November. These models have sucked with this. They've sucked. They just have. They haven't been good. So that's the 96-2000 analog right there. You look at this, Northern Hemisphere, you look at the heights, and I wanted to show you, like I said, the control. you know, it's really not all that different. You know, it's really not. I mean, you can see it. Let me go to the 30-day. You know, it's not super different here, guys. That's the 96 2000 analog package that, you know, it makes sense. This is the control run for snow. I know this is extreme, and I'm not saying take this to the bank, but something like this is on the table, in my opinion. All right? It's just something like this is on the table. So, that said, there's 96 January and 2000's temperature departures. Again, it's the only difference is it's colder in the Pacific Northwest. And it probably is. This is probably too warm in the PNW, whatever. It's stormy. Okay, especially in the Ohio Valley and the Northeast. Up and down the East Coast. Listen, big storms. These were big snowstorms in these years. 2000, 96 blizzard, the 2000 blizzard, these were big storms. Okay, so here's what I say to wrap this up. Probably colder in the 5 to 10. We're already seeing it. Maybe week 2 is just colder. We'll see how the trends roll forward. January 5th through the 15th, a couple of shots of cold air. It's not going to be total blowtorch warmth. A couple of shots of cold, because as you go through the MJO, you're naturally going to have the warmer risks. But as the convection moves through, positive mountain torque possibly flips the EPO, as the weekly data is saying. I think January 15th to February 1st is another good potential, kind of similar to early December. That's my video for today. So, enjoy, share it with a friend. Talk to you soon.